A young pro-life teenager canvassing for pro-life causes was physically attacked, and the woman pictured here was arrested for misdemeanor assault. The story is interesting because of what's happening in Kansas. In Kansas, just the other day, big news. They have voted to protect their right to get abortions. Now, many people on the left are saying this is a red state. How did this happen? And it's a fairly good question. I don't know. Maybe the reality is that people in an overwhelmingly red state still are relatively pro-choice, and that's the way things are going to be. Or maybe Democrats just came out in force. This should be a sign that things are not so predictable, and we don't exactly know what's going to happen in November. But a reason I find this story so interesting, and the fact this young teenager was pro-life activist was attacked, the reason I find it interesting is because it's because of the idea of bleeding Kansas. And of course, I can't resist but talking about some kind of civil war or whatever the conflict is that we're in. Now, maybe things will never get as bad as civil war may assume it would get. Like, we're not going to see marching factions. We are in a culture war, and maybe that's the extent. Okay. I think it's very likely that we could fall into an overt and legit civil war. I feel like we're in one. It just may not ever look like it did in the 1800s, back when communication was very different. And now we have means of propaganda and manipulation. And, things are all around just more subversive and sneakier. So, look, far be it for me to predict the future. I think we're in a conflict. But many of you are probably familiar with Bleeding Kansas. Bleeding Kansas was basically the conflict happening. It was a state civil war that was happening in Kansas just before the actual Civil War. I believe what happened was ultimately Kansas was admitted as a free state. Fighting in the Union, totally erupted. There was a civil war. So Bleeding Kansas technically never ended. Bleeding Kansas historically is marked as ending the moment the Civil War began. So all that really happened was the conflict in Kansas expanded into a nationwide conflict. So it's kind of, I don't know what the right word is. Ironic? Maybe ironic's not the right word. That Kansas, of all places, has this weird fracturing of a Republican-controlled state government with pro-choice enshrinement in their under the state Supreme Court. I find it particularly interesting, and I wonder if this could lead to a fracturing and chaos. Joe Biden is set to sign an executive order protecting women's rights to travel state to state to get abortions. And I have to wonder if this could be a major catalyst for conflict. You have right now something very interesting. Disparate political worldviews and one group denying personhood rights and another group trying to establish them. Right now, I think it's in Georgia. You can declare an embryo in your womb as a dependent. It's going the other direction as opposed to these states. In one state, they're saying it's not alive and you can just kill it. Another state, they're saying actually tax benefits for having a dependent. It's particularly interesting, isn't it? If this is the direction things are going and the bifurcation is just getting more and more intense, why would we not see some kind of extreme conflict? I mean, this is a hard moral issue. I often bring it up, and we'll read this story. This is a brutal story. What happens if a woman gets pregnant, flees the man, and then tries going to another state to have the baby terminated at 8 months when the baby is viable? Like, okay, I know you've probably heard me give this scenario, but for those that haven't, because not everybody watches every video I do, so, forgive me if you've heard this. Man and woman hook up, woman gets pregnant. 8 months later, she says, I'm leaving you. Thinks to herself, if I have this baby, I'll be stuck with this guy. I'm going to Colorado. Maybe she lives in Texas. The man says, she's going to kill my baby. The baby's already viable. Could be delivered, not killed. But she said, I don't care. If that baby lives, she's going to have some kind of tie with this man. So she goes to Colorado where there's no restrictions and says, terminate. What will the local governments do? Biden is going to protect it. He's going to be like, she's allowed to do it. Texas, what are they going to do? Send rangers to Colorado? Not going to happen. Unless it does. I mean, this idea that humans don't take actions. They're like, well, the law doesn't prescribe our ability to do that. Dude, I don't think that matters. If the woman gave birth at 8 months and the baby was alive and healthy and viable, living, and then she said, oh no, and then she flees with the intent to kill that baby, would the federal government then intervene? Well, I mean, it could have been aborted. You see, these are hard moral questions. No, I think what'll happen is you're going to end up with a father who's going to be like, nope. Let's read this story, and I'll tell you what's going on with Kansas and this abortion stuff. I hope you get raped. Kansas woman 37 is charged with assault after punching and abusing pro-life activist 18 who knocked on her door to canvass her vote. Grace Hartsock, 18, had been going door to door in Leawood, Johnson County when a woman became aggressive, allegedly screaming at her. The teenager, who had been volunteering for pro-life organization Students for Life, claims that initially a woman politely said, "Sorry, I don't think you want to talk to us." But after turning to leave, Hartsock, who returned to the door knocking on Monday, claims that she heard a second woman shouting and swearing inside the property. The second woman reportedly shouted, "Don't apologize," to her mom, before following Hartsock down the drive while berating her. Students for Life claim the woman shoved the teenager in the chest and began hitting her with closed fists until her mother told her to stop. Hartsock said, "It's unfathomable that the pro-choice movement claims to be pro-woman yet attacks women who don't agree with their narrative. It's not surprising to me that a person who advocates for violence in the womb wouldn't hesitate to attack a pro-life woman like myself." You know, look, the left likes to come out and say that pro-lifers were bombing abortion clinics and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's terrible. The doctors were being killed. Horrifying. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff. Why would anyone want to support more violence and murder? That's not what's happening today. And now we're seeing pro-life pregnancy centers. I mean, they're not even necessarily pro-life. They're pregnancy crisis centers being firebombed, being vandalized, being destroyed. You think I'm going to be okay with that, you lunatics? Dude, when you come to me and say that an abortion clinic was burned down and a dude was killed, I'm like, this is a bad thing. Like, we got to have this settled in law. We got to stop killing each other. I don't like abortion. Okay? You can't do this. We need peaceful resolution. We don't want civil war. But now you've got people firebombing pregnancy centers that help women, that give them like baby strollers and food. And you expect me to be like, that's a good thing. No, never going to happen. These people are hypocrites. Attacking this teenager? Dude, I had some religious fault. I am not a Christian. I'm not a fan of organized religion. And I had one day a few years ago, a bunch of people they were coming through my neighborhood, they were knocking on doors, and they were, evangelizing for something. And I was like, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I do. It was Bill Maher who pointed out, for one, he's a staunch atheist, and he said that people tell him that they're going to pray for him, and he's moved by it. He appreciates it. He doesn't think it means anything, but he knows what it means to them, and to them it means they want to help him. They're trying to do something. I respect that. So when someone asks me if I want to join them for church or whatever, I'm not insulted by it. I'm flattered by it. I'm like, that you'd care about me that much to try and save my soul is deeply heartwarming. A person comes to my house and is pro-life, and I'm going to be like, I respect and I understand what you're doing. I absolutely do. For a variety of moral reasons, I'm in the traditionally pro-choice camp. It's rough. I just think there are circumstances where they tried passing laws that had abortion restriction with no exception for rape. And I'm like, right there, you lost me. Sorry. They put in, so a lot of these states like West Virginia said, okay, we're going to have an exception for this. That's a compromise. I respect that because I know the pro-life side says it's not the innocent baby's fault as to how it was conceived. And I agree with that, but I don't think you can force a woman at government gunpoint to mandate you provide your life to another person, even if the person is innocent. If two people are walking down the street who don't know each other and a car rams both of them, and so the only thing they can do to save them is link their bloodstream together because like one dude's heart stops or something. I know it's a ridiculous hypothetical. The government can't be like, you are now forever attached to this person and be like, dude, I did not consent to this. I did nothing irresponsible. The government can't force it upon me. Now, I'm not a fan of elective abortion. But anyway, my point is, you come to my house, knock on the door, I'm going to be like, I appreciate it. You're probably not going to change my mind because there's hard moral questions as it pertains to government reach and what they're allowed to do. But good luck. Really, I mean it. Good luck. I don't think I'm the arbiter of morality. I don't think I have universal truths buried within my psyche. I just feel a certain way, and I respect people who are standing up for what they believe in. And I really don't like abortion. I don't know how you solve these deep moral and ethical questions pertaining to government authority and stuff like that. I understand and respect the opinions of, you say, like Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro. I get it. I always like bringing up the conversation I had with Glenn Beck because it was an incredible conversation. And ultimately, we're just like, all right, we're at an impasse. So there's compromise. They compromise on the issues of rape and stuff. And I'm like, if that's what you can get, I agree there. Incest, I don't know about. Like when they say rape and incest, I'm like, why? Now, if incest typically is rape, no, I get it. But the idea that like, I don't know, a 20-year-old woman and her dad have a kid, I'm like, I think it's wrong. I think it's very wrong. But should you kill the kid because of that? Now you're getting into eugenics territory. Because when they say like, well, there's a potential for birth defects, I'm like, I know it's not good. We don't like that. It's really nasty. But do you kill? I'll tell you, I'll put it this way. I say it all the time. Life begins at conception. Anyone who says otherwise, they are lying to you. I'm sorry. They are ignorant or they're lying. You can talk about ensoulment. You can talk about sentience. Fine. But not everything that is sentient or ensouled or however you want to describe it is dead. Let me put it this way. There are individuals who are comatose, who are alive that we protect. So you can't argue like, well, they're not conscious, they're not thinking. It's life. It's a unique set of DNA. It's cellular replication. It's life. Now, you want to have an argument about the moral and ethics of terminating that life? I mean, it's a serious question. Legitimate. There's a question of government authority and protecting of life versus responsibility of an individual to sustain a life even if they did not consent to it. The problem I have with the whole thing is like elective abortion. Anyway, I digress. This woman gets attacked. I know, I always get harping on it and I start going into these deep moral and philosophical questions. But here we go. Daily Mail reports. Kansas voters block state legislature from expanding abortion restrictions. Almost 60% of citizens in Republican state reject bid to remove the right to terminations in first referendum since Roe v. Wade was overturned. Let's break this down. A 2019 state Supreme Court decision declared that access to abortion is a fundamental right under the state's Bill of Rights, preventing a ban and potentially thwarting legislative efforts to enact new restrictions. Kansas residents voted to protect the right to get an abortion in their state, rejecting a measure that would have allowed their Republican-controlled legislature to tighten abortion restrictions or ban it outright. Voters in the majority GOP state rejected, by almost a 20-point margin, a proposed amendment to the Kansas Constitution that would have added language stating that it does not grant the right to abortion. I don't know how that happens. Kansas party control, 1992 to 2022 from Ballotpedia. No Democrat trifectas, 16 years of Republican trifectas. It's interesting, huh? Take a look at this. From 2011 to 2018, Republicans held everything. And from 2019 to 2022, Republicans control the Senate, the House, but not the governorship. Now, maybe that's it. Maybe there's enough people hyper-concentrated in big cities to get Democrats to win at the state level. But in the Senate and the House, you don't have it. I mean, it simply put, each district may overwhelmingly be Republican, but Democrats are hyper-concentrated in urban areas, giving them some ability to elect a Democrat. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. I got to be completely honest. It does not make sense. It could be simply put, Democrats are showing up in force on the issue of abortion. There you go. Democrats, they know they have very little to campaign on. But abortion's one of these issues. Republicans talking about the midterms, thinking they're going to sweep, and it's going to be so easy, they're going to get a guaranteed victory. I got to tell you, man, you may be stunned. So I'll tell you right now, the fact that the pro-life side lost this in a red state, well, people didn't come out, I guess. Look, you've got to get every single person you know to go vote. You got to get them to vote early. You got to get whatever it is. If your state's got early voting, mail-in voting, you need to be knocking on doors like this young woman. Now, these lunatics may attack you. I don't think it's extremely likely. This young woman got punched, apparently. That lady got arrested. But no one ever said it was going to be easy. If you thought fighting for freedom would be easy, then you're wrong. No, it is always hard. It is hard fought. And, outside of the issue of abortion, because I don't want to get into the politics of what it really means. It's a difficult moral and political issue. I'm talking about you fighting for what you believe in. It was always going to be hard. The formation of this country was not easy. The founding fathers, they did not believe they were going to win. but they sacrificed. They stood to risk. They risked blood, treasure, sacred honor, but also the lives of their wives, their mothers, their sons, their daughters, their brothers, their cousins, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents. They knew their entire family would be put at risk by signing those documents. What have you risked? I'm not saying you haven't. I'm saying think about that. Think about the risks you put every day. And you really do need to weigh what you find to be more important. And I mean this literally. I'm not saying you're not sacrificing. I'm saying for some people, you have too much to lose. I get it. I really do. I don't think everyone's going to be as strong as the founding fathers or willing to risk everything. I think some people are leaders and some people are followers. I am not trying to be condescending. I mean that literally. There are some people who say, let me stand in front of you and take the brunt of this so that you can live a better life. That's the point. If we were to always come out and say that everyone must stand on the front line, what's the point? No, the point is that we stand up to protect those who are unable to do so for themselves. And there are some people who just don't have that ability, which means we need more leaders. Now, look, I don't know what's going to happen in Kansas. I wonder if this is, a potentially bleeding Kansas scenario, maybe a modern version. Maybe it won't be bleeding. It'll just be hotly contested Kansas, a precursor to some kind of greater national conflict. Biden will sign executive order today, making it easier for women seeking abortions to travel between states for the procedure. I don't know exactly what an executive order will do. I think what Biden's trying to do is like, if you vote Democrat in November, we're doing something. Yeah. Please. The Daily Mail reports. It is his second executive order aimed at protecting the right to an abortion after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in June. Specifically, one of the directives Biden will issue on Wednesday will allow states to have not outlawed abortion to apply for specific Medicaid waivers that would, in effect, help them treat women who have traveled from out of state. The order will also call on healthcare providers to comply with federal non-discrimination laws and streamline the collection of key data and information on maternal health at the National Institutes of Health and the CDC. But its impact is expected to be limited in what it can do against the wave of anti-abortion laws being enacted in the states. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't do anything. Providing some funding. Okay, I get it. It doesn't do anything. I mean, Texas can still call it abortion trafficking or whatever they want to call it. Sure, you can go to another state. Don't come back, I guess. You know what I mean is, like, if these states have criminalized you, come back, they're going to arrest you. Now, I will tell you, I've talked to Seamus Coughlin of Freedom Teams quite a bit because he's very pro-life, and he said he doesn't want to criminalize the woman. Because that would be absurd. And I'm like, what do you think's going to happen, dude? You don't get to play the game. I'm sorry. If a woman is pregnant and she flees with the child, the law is clear. I mean, she's taking that child. If in Georgia you can declare an embryo as a dependent, then it's going to be murder if you choose to kill it arbitrarily, right? This is the direction we're going in. Personhood for the unborn. You see where this leads if the dominoes keep falling over? Now, maybe there's going to be a political solution to this. I don't see how when this is the way things are going. Kansas is about to light up. It's a majority GOP state. And they're pro-choice? Maybe. Maybe it's because Democrats are voting Republican. Like, former Democrats have flipped parties, but they're still people like me. But I got to be honest, I would not have supported that provision. A constitutional guarantee to grant an abortion? No, we need legislative, not constitutional. We need the state to outline when and how the government is allowed to do these things, not just have the Constitution say so. So I wouldn't be in favor of I'll put it this way. A Supreme Court ruling stating the Constitution guarantees that, I don't think makes sense. I would agree with Republicans being like, the Constitution does not grant this. It needs to go to the legislature. Now, the left, it's remarkable because, we had a progressive on Timcast IRL who is pro-abortion. I'm pro-choice. Seamus is pro-life. And somehow I'm the one arguing with him. And he's like, you're right-wing. And I'm like, bro, I'm pro-choice. You're just nuts. Abortion up to the point of birth? That's insane to me. So you can't have a constitutional guarantee to abortion because then what's the limit? None? Well, you can't. The Constitution says it's guaranteed. Nah, I'm not playing that game. I'm not. The Constitution needs to say, this is not the case. only because the Supreme Court tried to pass that, or in the legislature. And I got to tell you, this referendum doesn't mean much. They can still pass legislative a law saying no to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court may strike it down again. I don't know, man. These battles are going to keep happening. And I think it's an issue of the legislature to decide what is legal and what isn't. And there are questions about the restrictions on limitations of what a court can decide. It's not easy. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. What I can see here is it's getting nuts. This woman attacking this teenage girl, dude, don't do none of that. We don't need any of that. If someone comes to your door and knocks and you don't like what they have to say, you'd be like, you can go. I get texts all day, every day from Democrats asking for money. I just say, how many genders are there? And they stop texting me. Never a response ever again. And it's weird because I'm like, you can say as many as you want. You can answer the question. Nope. They know. There's no answer. Not even to the left. You can say, well, there's a spectrum. It's probably the best way out, I guess. So they just give up. I don't think things are heading in a positive direction, but November is going to be interesting, to say the least. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.